Hi everybody, Quigley here. I am super excited to be making my first ever YouTube video. This is like seriously monumental for me because I've been putting this off for a while, but I got so many questions from you guys this week about the filter detox that I've been doing, and a lot of those questions were about what it's like to run an Instagram account of my size and to be a quote-unquote influencer slash content creator. So I wanted to answer all of those questions. So I have Jessie here. She's going to be reading your questions and I'm going to be answering them rapid fire. Let's do this.
Okay, so first general question, what made you start blogging?
So I started blogging when it was basically like a creative outlet that was a side thing from my hustle, which was at the time I moved to LA to pursue music. So I moved out in 2011 from Minnesota to LA. I wanted to be a pop star. I, in my head, told myself that I was going to be the next Katy Perry.
And going off of that, how long did you blog before going full-time?
So I was pursuing music and I was very unhappy. I, for some reason, just could not slow down and enjoy the process. My head was always 2 steps ahead of myself in the future, and I was really miserable. Like, I had a time where I cried and cried and cried, and I just felt so suffocated, and I just did not know the way forward. And at the time, I had to be making promotional materials for my music, and so I made friends with a bunch of photographers just to be able to, you know, get some content to promote my music. And so I ended up doing these collaborative photo shoots with photographers, and once I would shoot with one photographer, that photographer would tell their friend, they were like, hey, Quigley's really stylish and she's quirky and she's fun to shoot, so you should shoot with her. And it didn't really hurt me to say yes to doing all these shoots. So I just started doing shoots. And as I started doing shoots, I started posting about the outfits that I was wearing. And I noticed that when I tagged Urban Outfitters, or if I tagged Free People or Forever 21, because these were the clothes that I currently owned, in the photos, they would repost me and I would see followers and I would see growth on my Instagram, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna keep doing this. And so I would just keep tagging whatever brand it was that I was wearing, just cause. And one day I had a brand reach out and say, hey, can we send you some stuff and you can post about it? And I was like, sure, why not? No skin off my back. I'm just here like trying to write songs, like not a big deal. So I said yes and just kind of kept my head down, kept working, and then eventually I got offered to post about something and get paid to post about it. And I think at the time I had maybe like 8,000 followers, and I was pursuing music. I was working as a waitress, server in a bar in Hollywood. I was also bartending a little bit on the side. And I was like, yeah, extra money? Sure. Yes, please. And so I did it, and more and more opportunities started coming in, and I, at that point, I was feeling really sad about where my music was going. I was feeling like I was writing all these songs and they weren't going anywhere. Nothing was taking off, and I was like, what would happen if I just tried doing this whole fashion blogger thing? My mom had sent me a couple of articles being like, hey, look at like all these girls, look what they're doing. These bloggers are making money. Maybe you could do that. And I was like, maybe I could. So I broke up with my music manager. I told her, I'm really sorry, but this is not a healthy place for me right now to be putting my creative efforts into. I'm just going to take some time and try and figure things out. And I decided I was gonna give it 1 year where I just saw what happened if I committed to doing that. I was still serving, I was still bartending, I was still hustling on the side to make a living, and I was supporting myself off of the money that I made as a waitress, as a server, as a bartender. But the extra money that I was bringing in through the jobs, the small jobs that I was doing on Instagram was something that I could just save. And at the time, so for that first year, it was maybe 5% of paid content and 95% of passion projects. The first year consisted of just reaching out to photographers to see if they wanted to just test shoot. Just reaching out and seeing who would shoot. I shot with a gazillion people. I met a gazillion photographers here in LA. I had a strategy for reaching out to brands, and I just started. At first, I was not asking to be paid. I just started asking for stuff to post about. And I would send out email after email after email after email, just trying to figure out if I could get stuff to shoot. And then it wasn't probably until the second year that a little tiny bit more money started coming in, and I was able to start moving from collabs where I was receiving product trade for post to being able to get paid to post. I'm rambling here. Just what's the next question?
You answered a lot of questions, so it's good. I'm not going to stop you. Going back a little, I guess, or this is still kind of in your beginnings. What was your biggest hurdle?
The biggest hurdle that I had when I first started was probably balancing, working at the bar and also trying to make time for the projects that I was excited about and the shoots. I was, going to work at like 8 and working sometimes until 4 in the morning. And so doing that a handful of the nights of a week and then trying to be productive on the other days and resetting my body to be able to do these shoots and be creative on the weekends was really hard. And so I think the biggest hurdle for a lot of people is going to be finding the passion and the commitment to make the content without getting paid in the beginning, and making that time for yourself when you still have to work another job. You still have to support yourself. You still have to, find a way to make a living in the beginning. And so balancing those two is definitely the biggest hurdle to overcome, I think. Because there will be a day where you're gonna have to quit that first thing. And that's, I think, what we're gonna get to next is as the second big thing for me was kind of, I feel like my cocoon moment was finally deciding that I needed to quit my job as a bartender and quit my job as a server so that I could give my blogging my all, to give content creating everything that I got.
Have you ever felt like quitting?
Have I ever felt like quitting? You know what? For some reason, in the beginning, no, because blogging and content creating started for me as an escape, because I was so tired and so burnt out by the music industry. I was so discouraged by the music industry, and for me, getting to dress up and go take photos was my happy place, and it was my way of refueling my soul. I really started this business, I have to say it, I did not start this business from an altruistic standpoint. I started this business for me, because I needed that. I needed something where I could be creative without the pressure of making it my career. And eventually, it snowballed, and now I feel like it really, what I always wanted out of my music career was to help people. What I always wanted was to be able to write and have a message and inspire people and inspire and be a role model to people. And ironically, that is what I ended up finding with my platform now. And so it has become more of a, what do I have to give? What do I have to offer the world? But at the beginning, it was not that.
Okay, and so now obviously the landscape has changed a bit from when you started. Is it too late to start a blog now?
I've been doing this for 3 years now, and things are very, very different. It is hard at this point to start a blog and expect yourself to be, you know, have 1 million followers tomorrow. That is very hard. But what I think that's exciting about 2019 is that if you look at the articles coming out, the current articles coming out about the trends that are being projected for 2019 when it comes to influencer marketing, you will see that this is the year for micro influencers now more than ever. And there's also even a subcategory of influencers, nano influencers, and that is 1,000 followers or less. So brands are already seeking people with 1,000 followers or less to represent them. And brands are putting more and more and more and more focus on micro influencers to convey their messages. It is much more important for someone to have an engaged audience that cares about what they're doing than it is to have these crazy numbers. So you should be excited. That gives me hope.
So going on the brand route, what's your approach with working with brands, and how do you get sponsored jobs that don't feel fake?
Okay, so my approach to working with brands, I wanna take this question in 2 parts, because my approach for working with brands when I first started was a little bit different from where I am now. And that leads me, and then the second part of the question we'll get to in a little bit. When you are first starting out, there are 2 words that you need to consider. Actually, there's 2 words you need to consider, period. Yes and no. When you are first starting out, you gotta be a yes person. You gotta say yes to as many opportunities as humanly possible. You have to seek out the brands that you're excited about and just start talking to them. Start a conversation. Find the contact for their PR and reach out. If you want advice on how to make a pitch, I highly recommend listening to Jenna Kutcher's podcast about writing a pitch. Her podcast is called Gold Digger. Go listen to that if you are curious on how to make a pitch for a brand. But when you are first starting out, my recommendation is say yes as much as humanly possible. Then you will get to a point where you have a lot on your plate and you are doing a lot of things, which is fantastic. But slowly you'll get to a point where you cannot do everything because it's physically impossible for you. That is when you need to start knowing when to strategically say no. The biggest thing when it comes to how do you get sponsored jobs that don't feel fake, the biggest thing there is authenticity and knowing your brand, knowing your purpose, knowing your mission statement, and when to say yes and when to say no. And that is something that I'm going to cover extensively in my upcoming class in February that comes out. It's called Social Media. And so